In this video, I want to take a couple quick minutes and bring you up to date on the things that you need to know about the FileMaker 23 release. First off, Claris, which is a subsidiary of Apple, so really it's part of Apple Incorporated, has decided that naming every version of FileMaker 19 is probably not a great idea. Ever since 2019, every release, whether it was minor or a major release, has been called 19. This has caused a lot of confusion with FileMaker customers, some of which have been around a long time. So the idea is that the version number at the end of the name will indicate the year of release. Now keep in mind, at the current time, while the marketing department at Claris calls this FileMaker 23, and everyone in the community largely refers to it that way, the technical version of the product is 20.0. Now we've pointed out to Claris for simplicity that largely the release for the year should match the technical version number under the hood. And that would imply in the future when they released the first release for the calendar year that the number would increment up by 1. It actually makes a lot of sense. A lot of other companies do it this way. So this is a welcome step in that direction. The second important element is that if you're an existing FileMaker user, the FileMaker 23 platform still leverages the FMP12 file format. And while the icon and name have changed a little bit, the product fundamentally still feels like previous versions. It is, however, a substantial upgrade. Keep in mind that if you're an organization that periodically updates your FileMaker users, FileMaker 23 is compatible with previous versions of FileMaker back to 19.4. So if you want to run FileMaker Pro 23, that's the main tool that you use for development and usage on a Mac or Windows computer. You're going to need to make sure your Mac is on the current operating system or one operating system back, which at the moment is Ventura, and then the previous one was Monterey. If you're a Windows user, you're going to need to be using Windows 11 Pro or 10 Pro previously, but 10 Pro goes way back. So a lot of people still have that, so you should be in good shape. FileMaker Server still comes in 3 flavors. It comes in a version for Mac, comes in a version for Windows, comes in a version for Linux, which currently supports Ubuntu. Now, I don't want to spend too much time babbling about servers because most FileMaker users don't care about their server as long as it runs and it's reliable. In the case of my company, we run all our servers up on Amazon AWS data centers, which are extremely reliable. However, if you're interested in rolling your own hardware, right here next to me are the minimum operating system requirements. Now, welcome note about server compatibility. FileMaker Server 23 works on ARM-based processors running Ubuntu. In our testing, we haven't seen really a big difference in performance between ARM processors and maybe Intel processors, etc. However, ARM processors are way more cheaper to rent from Amazon as part of your EC2 virtual server. As a reminder, with Amazon AWS servers, you can pick different kinds of processors, different kinds of operating systems. So Ubuntu is essentially a free operating system or super low cost, and the ARM processors are much cheaper. So if you upgrade the server, you might be able to cut your monthly cost down by a measurable amount. If you have questions about that, shoot us an email to support@rcconsulting.com. Now, since we're talking about servers and improvements there, I want to point out something really important. As I mentioned previously, Claris International is a subsidiary of Apple Inc., which basically makes it like a division or department of Apple, which also means that when Claris wants to ship a new version of their software, Apple security rigorously beats up on the FileMaker products to make sure that they're not open to being hacked. They are aggressively tested and pushed to the limits to make sure that there's no vulnerabilities that expose FileMaker to hackers or people with bad intentions. Now keep in mind, if your password on your server is 1234, then Claris can't help you with that and Apple's security won't matter. However, if you do your part in securing your server, Apple is ensuring that Claris International is shipping secure software, and that's a major deal. The next item to be aware of that's kind of significant is that the send mail command within the scripts in the FileMaker 23 platform now actively supports Oauth. And for those of you who have no idea what I'm talking about, because email spamming people find new and clever ways to send out unwanted and solicited spam emails. The internet service providers continue to increase the security requirements when you shoot out an email from your computer, which means that these extra security requirements are also passed down to the FileMaker platform. So Claris is starting to address this issue with the FileMaker 23 release, with Oauth support directly for Google and for Microsoft Azure. Another new feature that I really love is the idea of having a callback from the FileMaker server to the client. Now, I really hope this gets expanded in later releases of this platform, but if your client, your user using Pro or Go, tells the server to run a script for them, historically, that client could wait for the results, or it could blindly let the server continue on its own and not really have direct feedback as to what the results are from the server process. Well, with the FileMaker 23 release, the server can call back and forcibly activate a script on the client's machine, which has some pretty interesting possibilities. This is one of those things that we've been asking for like 20 years. This is really cool. So I can see this feature being very popular and the engineers at Claris expanding this feature to do even more. The next item is the introduction of some audit logging capabilities within the FileMaker platform. Now, in the last release of FileMaker, which wasn't called FileMaker 22, it was called FileMaker 19.6, that previous version introduced the idea of transactions, which were hugely welcome. It allows you to prevent partial data completion by your users in a way that could cause problems for the business. Put simply, if you have a script that's running an important process, maybe it's doing some financial calculations or report creation or processing, well, using transactions ensures that that process is completed fully. And if somehow the person who's doing that work is disconnected, or the internet dies, or they close their laptop, or whatever happens, and that process doesn't finish, it doesn't get left half completed in the database. It rolls it back to the beginning of where the transaction began. So transactions are completely atomic, as we say. It's kind of an all or nothing thing. Well, these are really cool. Well, as a bonus feature, starting with the FileMaker 23 release, Claris has attached audit logging to this transaction capability. So not only do you have transactions which protect your data, but if the transaction executes, it was fully completed. So all that data is saved to the server. FileMaker can create an automatic log entry, what the contents of those records were, what those fields said before the edit and then after the edit. So you have this audit capability wrapped around the transaction capability, which came out with the previous release of FileMaker. This is really cool. Now keep in mind, if someone says, hey, there's audit trails everywhere in FileMaker and they just magically work, that's not true. The audit capability is specifically attached to transactions. Transactions are something that you need to build into your application, starting with the 19.6 release, which I think shipped in the latter half of 2022. Another unexpected and kind of cool item that's been added to the FileMaker 23 release is integration with Claris Connect. Now, Claris Connect kind of came out in 2019, and it was kind of this herky-jerky, not well executed launch of an API integration with the FileMaker platform. It wasn't priced well and it had some major issues, and so a lot of developers like myself didn't use it. However, Claris has been making amends for these errors, which I'm thrilled to see. And so Claris Connect is coming to all developers in a free tier, which means that you can play with Claris Connect, build solutions with it, and then as you deploy it to your customers or to your users in a larger scale, then you would need to buy a license for that. So the idea with Claris Connect is that it is a service provided by Claris that FileMaker directly talks to now with a script step that provides API integration, which means that Claris Connect can directly send messages to Slack or text messages to Twilio or receive text messages or theoretically talk to QuickBooks, etc. And so while Claris Connect has not been popular previously with the community, creating a free tier makes it easy for you to jump in and play with this. There's some really neat plans for the future of Claris Connect, and I'm excited to see where this product goes. Now, there's a ton of other smaller features within this FileMaker 23 release. They are hugely important. Keep in mind, as I've been digging through the documentation provided by Claris, I haven't seen any reference to the number of bugs that Claris has fixed. And of course, some people at Claris don't want to admit that bugs even exist. Other people want to tell you that these bugs were fixed, and that's a great thing. As a developer, I want to know that they've been fixed. Over 500 bugs have been fixed in this release. And of course, you ask yourself, well, where are those 500 bugs? Well, a lot of times the bugs are created by new releases of operating systems. For example, there was an issue with Windows creating PDFs on certain versions of the Windows operating system. That bug was caused by a change by Microsoft that Claris engineers fixed with the FileMaker 23 release. So understand that there's a ton of fixes in the product. There's also a ton of security upgrades in the product. And once all these things were done, then Apple got it and ripped it apart, trying to find holes and vulnerabilities in it before they would allow Claris to ship it. So that allows me to sleep well at night. So that's your quick wrap up about the FileMaker 23 release.